Good evening and welcome to Scotland at 7. My name is Saoirse Healey. We've no guest tonight, so it's just me running through your top stories of the day. As always, we start with our Ukraine update. It's day 611 of the war. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that Russian forces have lost at least a brigade's worth of troops attempting to advance on Ukraine's eastern town of Avdiivka. Brigades vary in size and can number between 1,500 and 8,000 troops, and both Ukraine and Russia keep their battlefield losses a secret. The White House National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby has said that Russia was executing soldiers who failed to follow orders and threatening entire units with death if they retreat from Ukrainian artillery fire. Russia has said it thwarted a Ukrainian drone attack near Kursk nuclear power station in Kurchatov in the south of the country, where two news outlets said an explosion had damaged the facade of the warehouse storing nuclear waste. At a meeting of the Russian Security Council, Vladimir Putin has claimed that weapons from the conflict in Ukraine are being smuggled into the Russian Federation illegally. The wives and families of enlisted Ukrainian soldiers have gathered at Independence Square in Kyiv to call for the right to voluntarily demobilize after 18 months. President Zelensky's top diplomatic advisor has said that officials from up to 70 nations will meet in Malta to discuss Ukraine's vision for peace this weekend, rejecting the idea that cracks are appearing in Allied support for Kyiv. The talks on Saturday and Sunday will bring together national security advisors and foreign ministry officials to discuss Zelensky's 10-point blueprint for a peace settlement after 21 months of war. A fire station has been struck in the Ukrainian city of Zyum, damaging equipment and injuring 8 people. Russian installed official Vladimir Rogov has claimed Russia destroyed at least 4 of the Leopard tanks supplied to Ukraine by the West in Zaporizhia region within the past 24 hours. Arriving at the EU summit in Brussels, the European Council President Charles Michel said he expected leaders to discuss Ukraine, adding that there was broad support for financial assistance in the country. Irish leader Leo Varadkar said, because of all other things happening in the world, not least the Middle East, it would be very easy to lose focus on the war in Ukraine and essential that we don't do that. Viktor Orban has told Hungarian state radio that the EU's strategy over the war in Ukraine has failed, and the bloc should create a plan B as the Ukrainians will not win on the front line. The UK Ministry of Defence has noted that Russian Air Force's long-range aviation fleet of heavy bombers has not conducted air-launched cruise missile strikes into Ukraine for over a month. Anatoly Anatov, the Russian ambassador to the US, has criticized Washington for its latest round of support for Ukraine. Newly elected US Speaker of the House Mike Johnson said that funding to support Ukraine and Israel should be handled separately, suggesting that he will not back President Biden's $160 billion aid package for both countries. Moving over to the latest on the Israel-Gaza conflict, Israeli infantry backed by tanks and armored bulldozers have attacked supposed Hamas targets in an overnight ground raid in northern Gaza Strip. The military said the operation was preparation for the next stages of combat, and that the soldiers have since exited the territory and returned to Israeli territory. The Israeli Defense Force, the IDF, said it killed the deputy head of Hamas's intelligence directorate, Shadi Barud, in a strike in the Gaza Strip. The confirmed number of people held hostage in the Gaza Strip since the 7th of October cross-border raids by Hamas has risen by 2, reaching 224, according to the Israeli military. So far, 4 hostages have been released. Hamas's military wing, Al-Qassam Brigade, has said almost 50 hostages held in the Gaza Strip have been killed due to Israeli airstrikes. The Council on American Islamic Relations called on Joe Biden to apologize for his shocking and dehumanizing remarks after President Biden questioned the reliability of the ministry's reporting of a number of people killed and wounded during the Israeli assault on Gaza, because the health ministry is run by Hamas. Omar Shakir, the Israel and Palestine director at the Human Rights Watch, said that he saw no evidence that the numbers were being manipulated. The Gaza Health Ministry has issued a 212-page document with lists of numbers and identification numbers for 7,028 Palestinians that have been killed by Israel's bombardments since the 7th of October. A senior Hamas delegation has traveled to Moscow to meet Russian foreign military officials for talks on foreign hostages in Gaza. The delegation was led by Musa Abu Marzouk, a founder and political leader of Hamas, who met the Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Bogdanov. Arab nations have linked hands with the Global South to challenge Israel and its Western backers at the end of bombing in Gaza. To end the bombing in Gaza at the start of a rare two-day emergency debate at the UN General Assembly. A joint statement signed by foreign ministers of 9 Arab countries has condemned what it described as the targeting of civilians and the violations of international law in Gaza. Rishi Sunak said that the UK border force teams are pre-positioned in Egypt to assist British citizens trying to leave Gaza. Leaders of the 27 EU member states have unanimously called for humanitarian corridors and pauses of shelling in Gaza to allow food, water, and medical supplies to reach the Palestinians. The EU's 27 members said that the EU reiterates the importance of ensuring the protection of all civilians at all times in line with international humanitarian law and deplores all loss of civilian life. UN Humanitarian Chief Martin Griffiths has said that aid is barely trickling into Gaza despite the agency's best efforts. Mr. Griffiths has said bombardments on Gaza are getting worse, even in areas supposed to be safer. The UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian People said that it expects its fuel supply to run out today. The agency has been sharing its supplies in order to allow trucks to distribute aid, bakeries to feed people in shelters, water to be desalinated, and so that hospitals can keep incubators, life support machines, and other vital equipment running. Moving to Scotland, but on the same thread, First Minister Humza Yousaf has faced a torrent of racist abuse and remarks after Elon Musk, the South African billionaire and owner of the recently rebranded social media platform X, previously Twitter, responded to a clip posted by a Twitter account called @EndWokeness, calling the First Minister a, quote, blatant racist. The clip was taken from Humza Yousaf's speech as Justice Secretary in 2020, following the murder of George Floyd by Derek Chauvin, a white Minneapolis police officer in America. In this speech, Yousaf addressed the Scottish Parliament as a part of the wider debate on showing solidarity with anti-racism and expressed anger at the continued presence of racism in Scotland and across the world. Just 3 years ago, the then Justice Secretary stated that he did not have to cast his mind back particularly far to remember someone calling him a racial slur, and noted that his timeline was, quote, a cesspit of racism. It would seem not much has changed with Elon Musk's response to the 2020 speech, leading to an extreme increase in racist comments and tweets made across the internet about Humza Yousaf. Under Musk's ownership, the platform has seen a rise in misinformation following the launch of its premium feature, which allows users to pay for verification and lead to a deluge of impersonator accounts. The return of a multitude of banned accounts, including right-wing news groups, former US President Donald Trump, and the influencer Andrew Tate, who remains under investigation in Romania concerning money laundering and trafficking of minors, as well as the disbanding of a majority of its moderation staff, including the election integrity team. A spokesperson for the First Minister stated that the First Minister has been on the receiving end of racist hate, abuse, and death threats his entire life, and has stood firm against hatred and bigotry of any kind throughout. Adding, sadly, much of the racist abuse and threats of violence the First Minister faces are directed his way on X, formerly Twitter, and urging Elon Musk to use his position to tackle racism and hatred that goes unchecked on the social media platform that he owns. It has been revealed this evening that the First Minister has issued a letter urging UK political leaders to support an immediate ceasefire in Gaza to allow for a humanitarian corridor to open. The First Minister has stated that the UK should stand together to stop the humanitarian disaster that is unfolding in Gaza. The letter has reportedly been sent to the UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, First Minister of Wales Mark Drakeford, and the First Minister designate of Northern Ireland Michelle, Chair of the UK Parliament's Foreign Affairs Select Committee Alicia Kearns, and the leaders of the UK and Scottish political parties. Moving on, Christopher Blunt, the Conservative MP for Reigate, former Justice Minister and Vex Chair of the UK Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee, has been arrested on suspicion of rape and possession of drugs. Blunt, who has since been suspended by the party, released a statement after the Surrey police said that a man in his 60s had been arrested on Wednesday and subsequently released on conditional bail. After he identified himself, Blunt had the whip suspended pending the outcome of a police investigation, which means he is now an independent and has reportedly been told to stay away from the parliamentary estate. Blunt said he was confident the investigation would end without charge. He also stated that he had previously reported an allegation of extortion to police in relation to the same incident and had spoken to officers several weeks ago. In his statement, Blunt said that it had been reported that an MP was arrested yesterday in connection with an allegation of rape. I'm confirming that MP is me. The fact of the formal arrest requires a formal notification of the Speaker and the Chief Whip. He added, I have now been interviewed twice in connection with this incident, the first 3 weeks ago, and initially reported my concern over extortion. The second time was under caution following arrest. The arrest was unnecessary as I remained ready to cooperate fully with the investigation that I am confident will end without charge. It's understood the suspected controlled substances are being tested with the results pending. Staying with the UK's oil and gas regulator, the North Sea Transition Authority, or the NSTA, is coming under fire from environmental groups for using lawyers to argue against the publication of 5 key documents relating to the environmental impact of Shell's activities in the North Sea. It's anticipated that a legal representative for the NSTA will argue against the publication of documents that contain details about the risk of pollution as a result of decommissioning the Brent oil field operated by Shell for more than 40 years at a hearing in December. The NSTA says it opposes the publication on a matter of process basis. Shell has applied for an exemption from international rules that require all infrastructure should be removed from the field, and the UK government is deciding whether it will allow the oil company to leave the 170-metre-high oil platform legs in place for the 3 platforms known as Bravo, Charlie and Delta. A total of 64 concrete storage cells are contained in the leg structures. 42 of these have previously been used for oil storage and separation. Most of the cells are about the size of 7 Olympic swimming pools, and collectively they contain an estimated 72,000 tons of contaminated sediment and 638,000 cubic meters of oily water. Environmental groups believe that the documents held by the NSTA would expose new information about the long-term environmental dangers, which could be relevant to other North Sea oil developments, including Equinor's plans to redevelop Rosebank, the UK's largest untapped field. The 5 documents that the hearing relates to include updated versions of the field's decommissioning program and the field's environmental appraisal, as well as details about the substances contained within the cells, and research relating to the potential environmental impact of these substances over the short and long term, alongside technical documents relating to radioactive sediment and toxic drill cuttings. This comes following the decision by the NSTA to greenlight the development of the Rosebank oil and gas field off of Shetland, which sparked anger among environmental campaigners. The UK government has recently been accused of pursuing an irresponsible post-Brexit policy that could further reduce the price of bananas in the shop at the cost of the livelihoods of thousands of workers on small plantations in some of Africa's poorest countries. The British market is so-called dominated by the so-called dollar bananas, producers of Latin America who are able to sell cheaply due to rolled over EU negotiated free trade deals that have cut the import taxes or tariffs on the fruit. The EU, however, promised in 2019 not to cut tariffs imposed on the big producers any further in recognition of the impact on the smaller African competitors. The UK's exit has freed it from this pledge. According to AfriBanana, the Pan-African Association of Banana Producers and Exporters, all the indications are that the result will be a betrayal and the UK government ditching the EU promise to protect them. Banana tariff concessions have already been made in the last year to Mexico and Peru as part of the UK's accession to the Comprehensive and Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership, the CPTPP. A trade deal with Australia will see all tariffs lifted within 8 years. The UK government is now engaging in a specific banana tariff review as a part of its trade deal with the Andean countries, Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru, which the African producers say could wipe out the business in Ghana, Cameroon, Ivory Coast, countries whose economies are among the least diversified in the world. The 11.5% of the market held by African nations is said by AfriBanana to provide more than 80,000 direct and indirect high-quality jobs and to sustain about 500,000 people in rural areas. The African producers also claim to move the cut costs for Latin American producers will not necessarily lower the prices further for the British shopper, but will instead be pocketed further up the line as the cost to the consumer is already so low. The Foreign Secretary, James Cleverly, has refused to commit the UK to the EU pledge. An independent review commissioned by NatWest has found that the bank's decision to close Nigel Farage's account was lawful. Lawyers hired by NatWest Group said the lender acted in accordance with the relevant bank policies and processes when it decided to shut down Farage's accounts held at its private bank, Coutts. However, the initial report also revealed a number of shortcomings related to how it reached that decision and how it communicated this with Farage, as well as its treatment of confidential information. The Financial Conduct Authority stated that it had reviewed the findings of the initial independent report and said it highlighted potential regulatory breaches and a number of areas for improvement. That includes how the bank considers the potential closure of accounts, handles complaints from customers, and the effectiveness of its governance mechanisms. NatWest Chair Howard Davies said that this report sets out a number of serious failings in the treatment of Mr. Farage. Although Travers Smith confirmed the lawful basis for the exit decision, the findings set out clear shortcomings in how it was reached, as well as failures in how we communicated with him in relation to client confidentiality. He issued a further apology statement to Nigel Farage, stating that the bank is completely committed to implementing all the recommendations made by Travers Smith, and we are making substantive changes to our policies and procedures, in particular to ensure that the lawfully protected beliefs or opinions of customers do not play any role in our decision-making. Moving over to America, the little-known Democratic Congressman Dean Phillips has launched a campaign to challenge sitting President Joe Biden, to the confusion of many of his colleagues. Following several weeks of speculation and behind-the-scenes maneuvering, Phillips finally publicly announced that he is running in an interview on CBS. He filed the paperwork in New Hampshire this morning and posted a lengthy explanation of his bid for the presidency on X, formerly Twitter, stating that his campaign would focus on the economy and safety, but also generational change. He wrote, "I don't set out to enter the race, but it looks like on our current course, the Democrats will lose to Trump, and will lose and Trump will be our president again. President Biden is a good man and someone I tremendously respect. I don't understand why other Democrats don't want to run against him, and we are here. This is a last-minute campaign, but desperate times call for desperate measures, and encourage is an important value to me. A campaign website, dean24.com, went live yesterday evening, but simply solicits donations and carries no details on Phillips's plans or policy ideas. He also filed paperwork with the Federal Election Commission that same night. Running with the slogan, Make America Affordable Again, a nod to former President Trump's Make America Great Again, Phillips brought a campaign bus and government repair van to New Hampshire to make his case to voters. In his interview on CBS News, Phillips said that Biden had done a spectacular job for our country, adding that it's not about the past and that this will be an election about the future. I will not sit still. I will not be quiet when we are facing numbers that are so clearly saying that we are facing an emergency next November. He will not have the financial or organizational support of the Democratic Party, either nationally or locally, as it is likely going to aim to keep the top office by backing Biden. Phillips, however, has his own wealth. He is heir to a distilling company and the former co-owner of gelato company Talenti. Some local Democrats who supported Phillips in his previous runs for Congress in 2018 said they feel bewildered by his choice and are struggling to figure out the end goal. The presidential announcement comes after another move that angered some progressives in his district, when Phillips said he wouldn't oppose Republican Minnesota Congressman Tom Emmer for Speaker as long as Emmer met certain conditions, like funding the government and bringing aid bills to Ukraine and Israel to the floor. His speculated run for the presidency drew him a primary challenger in his district. Phillips is also yet to highlight the policy differences between himself and Biden. Instead, he pointed to Biden's age, saying a younger generation should be given the opportunity to lead. Moving back to Scotland, the Scottish government has announced that the Roots Youth Programme, run by Scottish families affected by alcohol or drugs, the SFAD, which provides support for young people affected by substance use in their family, is being expanded to 6 new areas of Scotland. The programme offers one-to-one and group support for those aged between 12 and 26 and currently operates in East and West Dunbartonshire. The SFAD has formed a partnership with 6 other charities who will roll out the programme to East Lothian, Falkirk, Renfrewshire, North Aberdeenshire, North Lanarkshire and Orkney. The expansion comes following the Scottish Government's announcement that the SFAD would receive £4 million earlier this year from the Whole Family Wellbeing Fund as part of the cross-government approach to tackling the drug deaths crisis. The delivery partners now include Aberlour in Falkirk, Action for Children in Renfrewshire, Alcohol and Drugs Action in North Aberdeen, Barnardo's in North Lanarkshire, Circle in East Lothian and Right There in Orkney. The Minister for Drugs and Alcohol Policy, Elena Whittam, has said, I recognise that the Scottish Government must not only have to help people who are facing problems with drugs, but also their family members. Help and support is available from a number of sources, including dedicated charities like Scottish Families Affected by Drugs and Alcohol, through projects such as Roots, and I am pleased that this funding will allow more young people to benefit from the Roots model. Justina Murray, the CEO of Scottish Families Affected by Alcohol and Drugs, said, we are delighted to see our Roots model expand across Scotland through this new partnership with 6 fantastic organisations supported by the Scottish Government's Whole Family Wellbeing Fund. A key part of Roots' success has been the involvement of young people from the start. They have shaped every aspect of our initial Roots programme in the East and West Dunbartonshire and remain at the heart of this new national rollout. Adding that our Roots young people are the most enthusiastic, creative and ambitious ambassadors for the programme's life-changing impact. Grow Your Own Roots will allow us to learn about this youth work model can support young people affected by family, alcohol and drug use across urban, rural and island communities from Orkney to East Lothian and from small organisations to large. The annual Heat in Buildings Progress Report has been published today, setting out the progress that the Scottish Government has made against its Heat in Buildings strategy, first published in 2021. In 22/23, the Scottish Government Heat in Buildings work has provided £170 million of funding through Heat in Buildings delivery schemes, helped over 138,000 households through the Home Energy Scotland Advice Service, made over 8,000 fuel-poor households warmer and easier to heat, and installed over 5,100 zero-direct emission heating systems in homes. The new build heat standard comes into effect in April 2024. Regarding the publication, Zero Carbon Building Minister Patrick Harvey said that today's report highlights the range and scale of the support we are providing to people to make Scotland's buildings greener and easier to heat. Last year, we provided £170 million in support, helping families and businesses make their homes and buildings climate friendly. Adding, I remain determined to support the people of Scotland through the heat transition, leading to warm and healthy homes and buildings while tackling fuel poverty and climate breakdown. Our forthcoming Heat in Buildings bill will help put in place the certainty that's needed to deliver that change. So that was our final story of the evening. Before I go, I just want to remind all of you viewers at home that here at Broadcasting Scotland, we depend on the generosity of you, our viewer. So to everyone who's donated and to everyone who already makes monthly payments, thank you so much. Our programmes will, of course, always be free to view. However, if you can afford becoming a Broadcasting Scotland supporter, we would be so grateful. Our target is to reach £30,000 to pay our very pressing bills, and the generosity of our supporters has meant that we have got a little bit more time. We've now raised £19,900 and we are able to continue making programmes for the next few weeks. However, our remaining total of £10,100 is still really urgent, so if you're able to donate and to sign up to make regular payments, that would be amazing. I'm Saoirse Healey. Thank you for watching and good night.